Listen up, people. We've got a purple state right now that is bobsledding down that slippery slope, which is all too real when it comes to gun control, and we've got the receipts. What am I talking about? They're now trying to regulate a firearm part as a gun itself. Background checks, record keeping, you name it. And if they get away with this, rest assured, copy paste, other states are gonna pick it up. And of course, why stop at this part, the barrel? Why not just move it to everything else? Guys, let's get into it. A metal tube, that's what Colorado Democrats have decided needs to be regulated like a firearm. Not a complete gun, not a receiver, not a suppressor. Those are already federally regulated as a firearm. We're talking about a barrel. You know, the tube part that the pew-pews go through. And under Colorado Senate Bill 26-043, if this passes, you will not be able to sell your extra barrel to your buddy, transfer one privately, or even buy one online without going through a federally licensed dealer. I want to talk about what this bill actually does because the details matter, and as we know from history, history is the best teacher. What happens in certain anti-gun states, which I'm reluctantly starting to include Colorado in, does absolutely have a way of metastasizing across the other free states. So Colorado Senate Bill 26-043 requires that all firearm barrel sales and transfers be conducted in person through a licensed dealer. If you're a private citizen and for whatever reason you want to sell a barrel, even to another law-abiding private citizen, you can't. That's a crime. First offense, 30 days in jail, $500 fine, maximum possible penalties. Second offense, well, that'll be worse than the first. Still a crime. The dealer conducting the transfer would be required to keep records for 5 years. The buyer's name, address, phone number, date of birth, driver's license number, the barrel's make, model, caliber, the transaction date, the name of the employee who handled the sale. That is the same paper trail you create, in essence, when you buy a complete firearm. This is low resolution here, okay? But you're with me. You're with me. I can feel like you're with me. I'm going to keep going. The stated rationale is what else? Ghost guns, i.e. privately manufactured firearms. Colorado banned so-called ghost guns back in 2023. The problem legislatures say they're now trying to address, because after all, it's banned, this still can't be a problem to the extent it ever was a problem, but this still can't be a problem because we've got this piece of paper saying you can't do this anymore, right? Right? Well, the problem that legislatures say that they are now trying to address is that you can 3D print most of a firearm, in other words, the frame, the grip, various other components, but you can't 3D print a functional metal barrel yet because the heat of firing would destroy it. So, they are claiming, criminals are allegedly buying legal metal barrels online and combining them with printed parts to build untraceable guns. By the sponsor of this bill's own account, ghost guns make up approximately 3% or less of firearms recovered from crime scenes in Colorado. 3%. 3% is the problem. And that's also the claim, by the way. The regulatory solution creates compliance burdens for 100% of law-abiding gun owners who make up the entire legitimate market for firearm barrels in the state. And of course, there's this other issue too. You see, anytime there is a bill that's being proposed in a state legislature, Senate, House, whatever it is that they call it, it always starts in a committee, and these committees always take testimony. I've testified in front of the Wisconsin legislature on committees before. Here we've got an interesting little exchange from an opponent, that's the good guy of this bill, who's a Denver resident named Keith Emerson, who put it plainly, you know, criminals who want a barrel will just drive a couple hours to go to Wyoming and then buy one without, you know, any Colorado paperwork whatsoever. That's not a very complicated workaround. That's a road trip. Of course, there's other states that surround Colorado as well, but you get the idea. The bill creates no barrier for anyone willing to cross state lines, but it does create a new criminal exposure for anyone in Colorado who doesn't. And by the way, I am 0% suggesting that the bill should create these new barriers or anything like that. I'm pointing out just one of the many logical gaps and rational gaps in the reasoning behind this. Now, of course, we all know what an anti-gunner would say. Well, the problem isn't with our bill. The problem is with, in this case, Wyoming's law. They should be doing this too. Or Nebraska, Oklahoma, Utah, you just pick a state. The problem isn't with us, it's everyone else. How many times have we heard that, right? Gun crime in Chicago is out of control because Wisconsinites keep selling firearms. At a certain point, don't you just have to say, you know, I think these neighborhoods in South Side of Chicago probably would be a little more dangerous than average, even if Wisconsinites didn't sell firearms. Maybe? Nah, we'll blame it on the cheeseheads. Speaking as a Wisconsinite, just so we're clear. There's one other thing that's kind of interesting about this, and that's the fact that the bill contains what's called a safety clause. This is a legislative procedure that designates a bill as emergency legislation. The effect of that in Colorado is that it exempts it from Colorado's ballot initiative process. So this means that if Senate Bill 26-043 passes and gets signed by Governor Polis, there is no citizen referendum to repeal it. It's insulated. It's protected from direct democratic challenge by the people it would affect. Part of what really resonates with me on a personal level about this story is the fact that Wisconsin used to have an absurd definition of what was a firearm. We very thankfully got out of that mess. But when I was a prosecutor, when I started out as a defense attorney, I don't remember the details precisely, but it was something to the effect of anything that in essence was attached to a firearm, once it came out of that gun, that was a gun. So in other words, a sling after it was attached to a firearm, that's a firearm. Or a little screw that came out of a firearm could go into countless other things, but boy, if that was attached to a stock or something like that, now that's regulated as a firearm. I was so happy when my state of Wisconsin, we got out of that insane jigsaw puzzle of what is a gun and guessing what may have been attached to a firearm or not. Now, rest assured, this was not something that, to my knowledge at least, from what I saw, was some sort of highly prosecuted offense. This was a reasonably obscure statute that I was aware of as a gun guy that made me sit up and go, holy, I'm afraid for Colorado folks, and frankly, now that we're opening up Pandora's box, every other state of, are we going to get back to this point where virtually anything can be called a firearm? At least in this case, we're designating a barrel. Fine. If I see a gun barrel, I suppose I can know what that is. No, I'm not defending this bill. As opposed to, oh, this particular sling over here, well, that's the one that was attached to a Winchester Model 70 10 years ago. So that's a gun. You can't bring that into a school zone. Felony. I'm afraid we're going to be going down some of these crazy roads before that my home state has already been down. But I want to zoom out for just a second and take a look at what's happened in Colorado since 2019. Every single legislative session that I'm aware of since 2019 has added another layer of gun control. Waiting periods, age restrictions to 21, ammunition age requirements, extreme risk protection order expansions, detachable magazine permitting requirements, and now barrel regulation. I don't think I've ever said that before, outside of an exporting conversation. Barrel regulation alongside a companion bill that would ban 3D printing of gun parts and criminalize possession of even the digital instructions to print them. No individual bill taken in isolation bans guns, or so it would seem so far. But every year, the regulatory web gets tighter. The cost of compliance gets higher. The risk of innocent mistakes, that gets steeper. And the cumulative effect, which is gaining visibility, if you map it out across 7 years of Colorado legislation, it's a state where ordinary gun ownership becomes progressively more legally entangling and complex, not to mention financially burdensome if you take the time to figure out how this all fits together and the time sunk in all that with each passing session. And folks, this is unfortunately a bit of a textbook version of how you disarm a population without ever saying the word ban. You regulate, you criminalize transfers, you decide what counts as a gun, you do all these little things. It's all in the name of common sense. You avoid those big bugaboo words like ban, confiscation, buyback, that kind of stuff. And hey, media plays along, people don't get upset, and next thing you know, what's really left? That's the point. Eventually, a lot of people just stop trying. Colorado gun owners need to be calling their state legislatures right now. And everyone else needs to understand that just because we're talking about Colorado's fight right now, Colorado and the other 49 states are all policy laboratories. And the experiments that succeed or fail, depending on your perspective, will get exported to other states, as it has always happened. Watch, care, advocate, and vote. I appreciate you sticking around. Be sure to hit that like and share button. Let your buddies know what is going on in Colorado today, because it could be coming to your home state or DC tomorrow, or maybe in the next 5 to 10 years. Trust me, it keeps happening over and over and over again. What other crazy things, what other crazy gun laws are being proposed in your state? Let me know in the comments section down below. We're going to close out with our ever popular quote of the day. This one is from St. George Tucker of Blackstone's Commentaries with Notes of Reference, 1803. Every lawyer knows about Blackstone's Commentaries. These were the original commentaries on the whole body of English common law and English law. Very authoritative. The Founding Fathers, this was one of their most well-read, well-understood books. It goes right back to their psychology and frame of knowledge when they wrote and drafted the Constitution. Quote, "The right of self-defense is the first law of nature." I appreciate you sticking around. I look forward to reading those comments. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Thanks for joining us on that video. And if you liked that one, then I think you're going to like these over here too.